Hello and welcome to this demo on indicating a target and selection process in the user interface UI automation. In this demo, first, we'll get an understanding of what target and anchor are. Second, we'll learn when to use an anchor. Then, we'll see how to indicate a target using a selection option window. And finally, we'll learn about some of the options: pause configuration, hoverable selection, and image selection mode available in the Selections options window. We'll be building a very simple automation, which will open the RPA Challenge website. Type a name in the first name field and click the Submit button. Now a bit of context about the RPA Challenge website. This page has an input data form. One thing we should be aware of is that the fields will change position on the screen after every submission. Excited? Okay. First, let's get to know what target and anchor are. Let's think of our home address. We provide a home address for someone who's new to the locality or area. We often mention an easily identifiable or famous landmark to give directions. Now, you might be wondering, why are we talking about all of this? It's an analogy to set context for the target and anchor. The home address is our target, and the landmark is our anchor. Now let's understand this in the UI automation language. UI automation activities enable you to work with UI elements by simulating human interaction such as buttons, checkboxes, text boxes, or drop-down lists, and so on. But UI automation activities as well need some instructions, right? To identify the correct button, checkboxes, or drop-down list, or to fetch the correct data from the web page or application, we can describe a target as a goal for an activity, like a button to click, a text box to type into, or a part of a web page to copy text from, and so on. Think of the action clicking on a Submit button. Which one is the target here? Correct, the Submit button is the target for the click activity. Each and every UI element from an application can be a target based on the requirement of an automation process. So, a target is a UI element that you want to interact with whilst building a UI automation. Now the next question arises: what is the anchor? How is it related to UI automation? Let's take an example of forms. The Google Forms or any other forms. How to fill in the correct information in each field. We'll refer to the label of the input field and then go ahead filling in the relevant information. Basically, we refer to another UI element as a reference to identify our target. Here, it's the name of the field. An anchor is another UI element close to the target that helps uniquely identify the target required for the activity to perform its action. So now we know what target and anchor are. Great, let's start our journey to indicate a target. Next, let's build a basic process in which we'll open the RPA Challenge website, type a name in the first name field, and click the Submit button. Let's begin. We've created the blank process and named it as UI element indicating a target and selection process. Let's add the Use Application or Browser activity into the Workflow Designer in Studio and indicate the application. In our case, it's RPA Challenge website. Next, we need to input the first name. Let's add a type into activity. Okay, now here comes the main part, indicating and selecting. What's our target here? The first name input field. Let's indicate the target on screen. The selection option window pops up, and it allows us to indicate and configure the UI element required for the activity. The Helper Info area provides useful information about the errors and remaining tasks. Select the first name input field, and Studio automatically finds an anchor to this target. Now there will be situations wherein Studio won't identify the anchor based on the UI of an application. In such situations, we must choose our own anchor. While choosing, we should make sure that it should be reliable. Now when we say reliable, it should work in all situations. To confirm the changes, we can either click Confirm under the target element, or click the Confirm button in the Selection Options window or simply hit Enter on our keyboard. Let's click the Confirm button from the Selection Options window, and let's provide the input text to the Type Into activity. To click the Submit button, we need to add one click activity. So let's add the click activity and indicate the Submit button. And we're all set. Let's run the workflow. It worked. Now let's take a look at all of the options available in the Selection window. We can go back to the Selection window to change the target, or to edit the current selection from the Activity menu button and click Indicate Target on Screen to change the target. Let's try to indicate the new target for this activity. Here, it's allowing us to change the target. Now we don't want to change the target just now, so let's click Cancel. To edit a descriptor for the current selection, we can click its Activity menu button and select Edit Target. This is also a useful way to test if the descriptor is correctly identified, as it locates it again. Now you might be thinking, what is this descriptor? The anchor and target pair is called descriptor. We'll learn more about this in the descriptor course. Now let's understand all of the options and their respective functionalities available under the target element. The delete option is used to delete the target to add new in case of wrong selection. The setting option takes us to the respective window under the Selection window for further enhancement if we wish to make it with respect to target or with an anchor. Add Anchor is used to add the anchor. We can add a maximum of 3 anchors to a target. We recommend keeping the number of anchors as low as possible, as it makes the target or UI element very specific, and they all need to be correctly found at each runtime. This will take longer, or it can even fail the execution. Let's add more anchors to our current selection and check the result. Let's add one anchor to phone number. And add another one to company name. We've added all 3 anchors. Now let's try to add the 4th one. Here, it's not allowing us to add the 4th one, and giving the warning, no more than 3 anchors can be added. As of now, let's click Confirm on our selection and run it. It ran successfully because all the UI elements were in the same position as they were whilst indicating. But we know that it changes its selection each submission. So let's run it again. As our selection has too many anchors, by doing so, we made our target very specific, and it didn't identify the correct target, as they all need to be correctly found at each runtime. Also, it took the longer execution time and even failed the execution. Okay, let's go and edit the descriptor to make it reliable. Here, the Selection window says, Element was not found. Also, as you can notice here, the target and all anchors are highlighted in red. This means that the target and anchor selection is invalid. Let's go ahead and remove the additional anchor. You might be curious to know about what will happen if we don't add any anchor. So, let's remove this last anchor as well. Notice that there are too many other similar elements on the screen. Some elements are highlighted in yellow. Here, a yellow highlight indicates that our selection isn't specific and similar elements, duplicates, are found. To make it work, let's add an anchor to the label of the input field, first name, and the target highlighted in green. This means that the element is identified. Let's run the workflow. And it worked as expected. Now we've reached the last segment of this demo. Let's understand some of the options available in the Selection window to make our selection process easier. Let's go back to the Selection window. Here we'll learn about Pause, Hoverable Selection, and Image options. The Pause option helps us to pause our selection in case we need to adjust anything inside the application before indicating. Currently, we're in the wrong window of the RPA Challenge website. Here, we won't be able to edit the target as the UI element is not visible. Here, we can make use of the Pause option. We pause the configuration by pressing the F2 button on our keyboard. Once we click the Pause Configuration button, the selection process will pause for 3 seconds by default. Now we can adjust the time interval by changing the duration here. So let's click Pause Configurations option, and the selection is paused. The timer begins to count. Now let's quickly switch the page. As you can see, after 3 seconds, it resumed the selection. We're not changing anything with our target. It looks good. So let's confirm our selection. Pretty helpful, right? Great, let's see another option, Hoverable Selection. As the name indicates, this option comes in handy when we want to select any UI element that's only available on hover. Let's go to the RPA Challenge webpage for the moment to understand the scenario. Here, we can access these options only by hover. Now to demonstrate the Hoverable Selection option, let's go back to Studio and add the click activity to select Japan Language for RPA Challenge website. Let's add a click activity and indicate JA option, which is available only on hover. To select the JA option, we can just enable Hoverable Selection. And here we can select this JA option. Awesome! Now let's learn about Image Selection Mode. We can switch to Image Selection Mode by pressing F3 from our keyboard. Or we can enable the Image Selection option from the Selection option window. And then we hold the left mouse button and drag around a region from the application window to use as target or anchor. We can use Image Selection Mode for both anchor and target. We'll learn more about this in the descriptor course. Let's see one last option under Target Element, Convert to Dynamic Text Target. This feature helps in targeting elements regardless of their specific content, such as trying to click on the first element in a search list, or trying to click on a dynamic element from the web page or from an application. We'll learn more in detail about this later in another demo. And this brings us to the end of our demo on indicating a target and selection process in the User Interface UI automation. Let's quickly recap. In this video, we've understood what target and anchor are. We've learned how to indicate and select a UI element using the selection process window. Finally, we also got to know how we can make use of Pause, Hoverable Selection, and Image Selection Mode options. Here's a challenge for you. Now that you're familiar with the Selection Options window, choose any application of your choice and perform a click action on any UI element in the application and check its reliability in different situations. Give it a try and don't worry if you get stuck. The next course, Descriptor, will help you understand advanced usage of this feature to make UI automation more reliable and efficient. Thanks for watching and happy automation!